Hey guys, it's the new main. Today I'll be reviewing the Element 6 Surtr, which I think is one of the most overlooked paddles in 2025. Been mentioned by a couple of reviewers, but I don't feel like it's gotten the attention and recognition it deserves. I've been using the Surtr as my main paddle for about 2 months now, roughly 40 hours of playtime, which I think is plenty of time to really give a fair assessment, especially when it comes down to durability. In this review, I'll go over the basic specs of the Surtr, break down how it performs in different parts of my game. I'm going to compare it against my previous main, which was the Yola Perseus Pro 4 right here. And just to be clear, this isn't a paid review or sponsorship. I bought this paddle myself, and these are just my honest thoughts based on real play experience. So enough talk, let's get into it. So the Surtr is built with a foam-injected construction and a ribbed carbon core, similar to what you would see in the Gearbox JX2 Power. It has a newer Gen 3.5 style foot and core design. And around the perimeter, it's edge injected with an EVA foam ring that stiffens the walls, helps increase the size of the sweet spot, adds a bit of pop, and increase the overall stability, especially on off-center hits. The face uses a raw carbon fiber surface here. As you can see here, there's a pretty good amount of grit as well. So now let's get into the specs of the paddle. So from Element 6's website, they state that the Surtr has a length of 6.3 inches, width of 7.5 inches, static weight of 8.15 ounces, plus or minus 0.1 ounce, swing weight of 114. They didn't list a twist weight. It is USPA approved, PB Core 43 approved, so you can use this for tournament play, unless you're playing for the PPA main draw, which requires UPA certification. The Surtr that I ordered came from the third production batch, which I measured to be about 8.2 ounces with a length of 6.33 inches and a width of 7.75 inches. So it is slightly wider than what they state on the website and slightly longer, which is interesting. So maybe it's definitely a hybrid, but it's starting to feel like maybe like a wide body. Using my Briffidi setup, which is a Swingweight Twistweight machine, I measured a swing weight of 118 and a twist weight of 6.5. This is before I added the edge guard here. I also have a core grip, an extra small one, which adds some weight. So after adding these two, the total static weight was bumped up to 8.6, with swing weights and twist weights increasing slightly to 120 and 6.6 respectively. I felt like I didn't need to add any additional lead tape here because I felt like the paddle was already very stable, especially on off-center hits if I hit outside the sweet spot. I wanted to keep the swing weight low enough so I can still have fast hands at the kitchen. Overall, you know, I feel like these specs are in a good range, at least for me, and are very competitive compared to other hybrid paddles. So let's get into how this paddle performs on Dinks. So starting at the kitchen, Surtr feels very plush, yet dense on contact. The Perseus Pro 4 is a lot more hollow. So if you like the hollow feel, I don't know if you'll like this paddle, but if you love the dense feeling, this is a good paddle for that. The pop is more on the lower end when you compare it to other power paddles like the Perseus, which I think makes it easier to prevent pop-ups and hit consistent, unattackable dinks. The grit and extra dwell time really allows me to add spin, especially top spin and slice, and add shape on the ball. With that, I'm really able to stay aggressive when I'm in a dinking battle, especially cross court. I can hit a lot of topspin with a lot of pace. I also want to know that this paddle has a more muted feel, so it's not going to be very responsive or crisp coming off the face. So that's really a preference, but I found that I like that feeling, that muted feel, because it feels nice and soft So when you're hitting your dinks, like, it feels very pleasant, especially on the arm. It feels more like a tennis racket. But again, it's all subjective. It's definitely a lot more plush than the Perseus. This is still a pretty plush feeling compared to a lot of other paddles out there. But overall, I think it's great for dinks. Again, it feels very soft, pleasant. It has a muted feel. The biggest advantage it has with dinks is the spin you can generate, especially on topspin rolls, like forehand, or I have two-handed backhand. I really like to put a ton of topspin. And with topspin, you can put more pace on the ball as well because the ball will dip faster. So this allows me to really put a lot of pressure on my opponents. On punch volleys, the muted feel and extra dwell time make it feel like I'm pocketing the ball, catching it, and slinging it off. Similar to how, if you ever played tennis before, how the ball gets cradled by the strings and then shoots off, which I do personally like, since it does have a little bit less pop than Perseus. That is one of the disadvantages. So when you're in a fast hand exchange or you're hitting a counter, it might come off a little slower than we're used to with those type of paddles. But I mean, the pop isn't bad. Like, again, it's better than most all court control paddles. It's just on the lower end of the power paddle category. So it's not as super poppy. Again, that carries its advantages and disadvantages. Poppy paddles tend to be harder to control, especially on drops or maybe drives or resets. But for this one, I still think it performs very well when I'm hitting a counter or a punch volley. It still comes off the face pretty hot, just not as hot as the Perseus. On roll volleys, this is where I think the paddle really shines at the kitchen. Because it has a lot of, or extra dwell time and really good grit, and you can generate a lot of spin, you can really get under the ball, especially when the ball comes to you a little bit lower and it's harder to hit a roll volley. You can really grab the ball and grip it and then brush out to add a ton of spin, which has advantages of obviously keeping the ball in more often and also being able to add a little bit more pace. So I really enjoyed hitting roll volleys with this. I do like to hit them a lot. I especially like I try to mimic Ben John's, his backhand roll volley that he likes to hit down the line a lot. With the Perseus, it did have that advantage of, again, a higher sweet spot here, a little bit more reach, so I can hit a little bit farther. This one, you could still reach pretty far, you just can't reach as far, but you can add more spin than the Perseus. This one is definitely a little more smooth and doesn't have as much dwell time. So on drops, I felt like this also performed really well and a lot better than the Perseus Pro 4. Mainly because, again, the extra dwell time, the grit, allows me to really grip the ball and add a lot of spin, especially on my top spin or slice drops. With the top spin drops, if I have time, sometimes I can even hit a drop that's almost like a drip, which is like a hybrid between a drive and drip. So it has more pace, it dips lower, and it's harder to attack. And the forgiveness of this paddle, it has a large sweet spot. So I feel like I could really hit very consistent drops, and since it's not super poppy, and it's not as poppy as the Perseus Pro 4, I feel like I can really control it and swing a little bit more, a little bit faster without risking having it popping up. One thing to notice though with drops that I noticed was that the ball comes off at a higher launch angle. The reason why I mention that is because it's important, because when you hit your drops, usually you want to, you're trying to hit from low to high, right? You're trying to sometimes push the ball up for a flat drop, or you're trying to maybe add some spin, brush up with a topspin drop. With this, I had to kind of swing a little bit straighter through to prevent the ball from popping up too high, which did seem like it was a disadvantage from the beginning when I first used the paddle. But then when I kind of adjusted my swing path a little bit to swing a little bit straighter, I was able to hit like a lower drop with more spin as well. And I feel like I wasn't, risking hitting too high of a drop that pops up high on the opponent so they can attack, because I'm not swinging low to high. I don't have to really gauge that power as much. I can just swing a little bit through. If it goes a little bit long, that's okay because it's still low. But with the Perseus, it's like you swing low to high and you swing a little bit too fast, or the ball's coming too quick and you're not able to control and absorb that pace and control the speed. It's gonna pop up, it's gonna go up too high on your opponent, and you're gonna get attacked. Secondly, sometimes the low dwell time on this, lower dwell time, and there's less grit, so the ball sometimes would slide off. Overall, again, the drops really good on this paddle. I really liked it. It just took some time to really dial it in. So I recommend drilling with this paddle first before you take it into a game and really dial that in. So on resets, I think this is where this paddle really, really shines. A couple other reviewers mentioned that they love using this paddle for resets, mainly because it's just so easy to do a reset. The construction, the extra dwell time, and the grittiness allows you to really absorb the pace of the ball. It also has a large sweet spot. So I felt like when I was trying to hit a reset, and if I didn't make contact directly on the sweet spot, I could still reset the ball almost like I was just tossing the ball into the kitchen every single time, no matter how fast the ball was coming at me. So the amount of effort I had to put in was very, very low. Compared to the Perseus Pro 4, I have to be very focused and very attentive and really get my touch dialed in, my feel to really hit consistent resets in the kitchen. You know, I think this is the biggest benefit of having this paddle is the resets. And even without any perimeter weighting, I was still able to reset the ball easily. And there's not a lot of twisting either, not much vibration, I think, with this muted feel. So it feels very stable every time you hit a reset. On drives, this paddle has a good amount of power. I would say it's more on the low end compared to most power paddles. But if you do swing hard, you can still hit the ball with a lot of pace. It's definitely less power than the Perseus. The thing I really like about this paddle when I hit drives is the amount of spin you can hit on it, which I think is a big advantage because, you know, if you're a person that really likes to hit hard drives and your ball is flying out, this one can add a lot of extra spin on it without even having to brush up every time. The ball does not come off like a trampoline, kind of like it does on the Perseus Pro 4, which I personally liked on drives because it's more of like a linear power curve where the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And also you're not going to risk hitting the ball, 10 feet out if you swing a little bit too hard. So it's more controllable and more predictable on drives than the Perseus. And I was able to hit very consistent drives with a lot of spin. All my drives they almost looked not exactly identical, but very, very similar in terms of how much clearance I was getting over the net, how much pace I was able to put onto it. And I think consistent drives are a really important aspect to being a better player. So let's go over some of the pros. So number one, very, very spin friendly, a lot of spin. Easy to generate, heavy top spin, slice your drives, your drops, your volley rolls, your serves, your returns, all aspects of the game. And with the higher launch angle, you're able to swing a little bit through the ball and still have a significant amount of spin applied to the ball as well. Secondly, it has exceptional control forgiveness. Again, with the power level and the pop level, the power level is lower on the power paddle side, so that makes it more predictable. It doesn't have that trampoline effect of the Pro 4. And the pop is, I would say, again, lower than the Perseus. It's not the highest pop, which also makes it easier to control, especially on drops or resets. It has a large sweet spot as well. I think that EVA foam ring really helps with that. And there's not much twisting on offset or shots. So overall, it feels very stable when you're hitting with it. Paddle is very fast at the kitchen. Again, I didn't need to add any additional weighting, which was great because I felt like it was already very stable. And then lastly, it's very arm friendly. So if you face any issues with tennis elbow, wrist problems, golfer's elbow. I personally had golfer's elbow, and that was a persistent problem. You know, playing with this really helps you kind of with those issues, since, you know, when you hit with this, it does feel softer, more pleasant on the arm, and there's less vibration overall compared to the Perseus. So let's go over some of the cons of this paddle. So this is not a very, very powerful poppy paddle. Again, I would still classify it as a power paddle, but it's just on the lower end of that. And the pop is definitely much lower than the Perseus and lower than, I would say, most power paddles as well. So if you're a big banger ball and you love power and you use that in pop to really win most of your games or exchanges, this might not be the paddle for you. The muted feel is can be a little bit unusual, especially if you come from a Gen 3 paddle, which is a lot more crisp and responsive. So it might feel a little weird. It might feel like you can't really feel the ball as much. But I do think you can get over that by, you know, playing with the paddle more. And again, this is just subjective. Some people like muted feels more. Some people like more of the crisp, responsive feel. So if you do prefer the muted feel, more plush feeling, then I think you'll like this paddle a lot. And the last con it's kind of superficial, but I think it's important, is the design visual here, and the aesthetic of the paddle is not the greatest, I have to admit. I do like it's black. I just don't like this huge sword icon here, and I'm not a fan of this Surtr logo. And with the sword, it just doesn't really fit the overall, make the aesthetic of the paddle feel better, look better. So who is this paddle best suited for? I think it's best suited for intermediate to advanced players who really like to put a lot of spin on their shots, who like to apply their own power while still having a good amount of control. It's also for people who are transitioning from maybe like a controller all-court paddle, and they want a little bit more power and pop without sacrificing that control. It's also good for all-court or defensive type of players who really love resetting the ball, and they really want that stability and consistency when they're transitioning from, you know, the mid-court to the kitchen. And lastly, it's for players who really enjoy that pleasant feeling when they're making contact with the ball with their arm, and need something a little bit more arm friendly. So would I recommend this paddle? Absolutely. If you're looking to add more spin with excellent control and forgiveness, and still keep a solid amount of power and pop in your game, the Surtr really delivers. After about 2 months of use, 40 hours playtime, I've noticed my game improve dramatically in almost every part, especially from when I need to transition from the backcourt, the midcourt to the kitchen. The overall durability is great. It's, you know, really held up compared to when I first started using it and to now. I didn't notice any drop in performance. You know, the grit has smoothed down a little bit, which is common for most paddle nowadays, but you know, it hasn't worn off a ton. At around $200, I think it competes toe-to-toe with a lot of paddles at this price point or even above. In my opinion, it definitely outperforms the Perseus Pro 4, which is at $280 in almost every category. The only exception would be this has more power and pop. So if you're interested in picking one up and you really want to try this paddle, I put a link to the paddle in the description below. Element 6 does offer a 15-day test period. So if you feel like it's not the right fit, if you're not really liking the paddle, you can return it within those 15 days for a full refund. Thanks for watching. If you found this review helpful, drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more reviews like this in the future. I'm planning to put out a review for the Element 6 Zephyr, which is Element 6's newest paddle. I haven't gotten enough playtime in this to give it a fair assessment, but I think in a couple weeks, I'll be ready to put one out for that. So yeah, so I got more paddle content on the way. Make sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.